Have you ever stopped to think that behind the perfect faces of Korean dramas, there are lies capable of bringing down entire careers? Today, we're going to reveal the stories of actors who deceived fans, manipulated the truth, and ended up being publicly exposed. After hearing these revelations, you'll never look at these idols the same way again. Sohi was always sold as the actress of the new generation who overcame difficulties with talent, beauty, and effort. And it was precisely this image of overcoming that put her in the spotlight, until a detail in her own narrative began to crumble and put her credibility at stake. It all started in January 2024, when Sohi participated in a YouTube program called Nattering with Na. There, in a very relaxed manner, she told that she had been accepted to an art school in France, but couldn't go because she didn't have the 60 million won required in her account for the visa. The story sounded inspiring. The young woman who almost fulfilled her European dream, but had to give up for lack of money. It was almost like a drama script, but that's when the internet began to sniff out contradictions. Korean internet users, always attentive to every detail, remembered that the acceptance process at French universities didn't work exactly like that. First comes the acceptance letter, then proof of resources for the visa. So, how could Han have been accepted and, at the same time, not have met this basic requirement? The math didn't add up. And, as we know, when the mathematics of fame don't match, rumors grow double. The subject spread so quickly that, in a short time, Korean newspapers and even international portals began using heavy expressions like educational fraud alongside her name. Many fans began to question, had Sohi really been accepted, or had she invented a more dramatic version for her own biography? The pressure became so great that her agency had to come forward publicly. In April, 9ATO Entertainment released a statement confirming that yes, Sohi had been accepted to a school in France, but the detail is that they didn't show any documents, saying they couldn't expose private information. For some, it was enough. For others, it sounded like a rehearsed excuse, without concrete proof. Han herself tried to explain, saying that her words had been edited and misinterpreted by the program's format, that she didn't want to seem like a tragic heroine, just share a life plan that ended up not happening. But by this point, the damage was already done. And as if that wasn't enough, another detail began to be discussed. The amount she cited. 60 million won is much more than necessary for certain student visas in France. This reinforced the idea that her memory was distorted, or worse yet, that she had embellished the numbers to make the story more convincing. In the end, the absolute truth never came to light. There are no public documents that prove or disprove her acceptance. There's only her word, the vague confirmation from the agency, and the suspicion of an audience that doesn't like to feel deceived. What remains is the stain. Because in Korea, a lie doesn't need to be huge to be fatal. A half-truth, an omission, or a poorly explained detail is enough for an artist to lose credibility. And Sohi, who should be being celebrated as one of the greatest actresses of the new generation, now carries the mark of someone who told a story too beautiful to be true. And in the world of Korean dramas, where perfection is demanded every second, trust is the most valuable asset. When it breaks, it hardly ever returns to what it was before. For many years, Sihoo was seen as one of the great heartthrobs of Korean television. Handsome, charismatic, and with memorable performances in dramas like The Princess's Man and Cheongdamdong Alice, he represented the perfect archetype of the romantic star. But in 2013, his image plummeted brutally when he became involved in one of the biggest scandals of the decade, marked by accusations, contradictions, and a public narrative that many considered full of lies. That year, a young woman identified only as A denounced the actor for sexual assault. According to her, after a night of drinking, she would have lost consciousness and woken up in Sihoo's apartment, where she alleged to have been abused. The case made headlines in all newspapers, and Korea plunged into intense debates. But soon after, the actor's version emerged. He said the encounter was consensual and that there was no crime. It was her word against his. Up to this point, it might have seemed like just another controversial case, but the situation quickly took on the proportions of a police novel. The alleged victim presented messages and details that, according to her, proved the lack of consent. Meanwhile, Sihoo and his team claimed there was conspiracy and attempted blackmail. Each week, new elements were revealed and public opinion was divided. Some saw the girl as a victim. Others believed Park was being targeted by a setup. The most serious thing for his career wasn't just the accusation itself, but the contradictions that began to appear. The actor would have changed parts of his testimony throughout the investigation, which raised suspicion that he was trying to manipulate the official version. The press didn't forgive. Headlines talked about Sihoo's lies and about how he was was trying to save his reputation at any cost. In the end, the case was dismissed because the victim withdrew the complaint, and the prosecution didn't proceed. Officially, Park Sihoo was not convicted, but in the court of public opinion, the stain remained. For many, the simple fact that the versions had contradicted each other so many times was already a sign that the truth had been distorted. The label of liar became associated with his name, and his career went into immediate decline. After years away from the big spotlight, Park tried to resume his professional life, accepting smaller roles and even participating in reality shows. But with each reappearance, the shadow of the past returned to the surface. More recently, new controversies have reignited discussions, with rumors of involvement in situations that reinforce the image of an actor always surrounded by controversies. And, again, the word lie was the first to appear in online comments. Park Sihoo's case shows a fundamental point of celebrity culture in Korea. Even when justice doesn't convict, public opinion convicts. The public doesn't forget, especially when they perceive that a star tried to manipulate facts or change versions. For fans, the drama heartthrob who embodied romantic perfection lost his shine the moment his words stopped sounding trustworthy. Today, Park Sihoo still acts, but never recovered his former status. His name became a reminder of how a career can plummet not just because of a crime or accusation, but also because of the perception of lies. In the end, what weighed most wasn't the dismissed case, but the feeling that he never told the whole truth. For a long time, Lee Jonghyun was remembered as the charismatic guitarist of the group CNBLU, and as the rising actor who won roles in successful dramas, like A Gentleman's Dignity. He had everything to follow a brilliant trajectory, until in 2019 his name found itself at the center of one of the biggest scandals in Korean entertainment, the so-called Burning Sun scandal, which involves several idols and actors in cases of prostitution, drug trafficking, violence, and, above all, illegal sharing of intimate videos. When the case exploded, Jonghyun immediately tried to distance himself from the controversy. His agency, FNC Entertainment, was quick to declare that he had no connection to the celebrity chat rooms involved. The singer himself remained silent, making it clear that he had nothing to do with it. This initial denial gave some relief to his fans, who hoped he would pass through the storm unscathed. But the truth didn't take long to surface. Shortly after, the police revealed that Lee Jonghyun did participate in the chat rooms, and that although he wasn't the group's leader, he had watched the illegal videos shared and made derogatory comments about women. The chat screenshots were clear, and the evidence was unquestionable. The lie fell apart in a matter of days. It was at that moment that public perception changed radically. The problem wasn't just participation in something so serious, but the fact that he and his agency had blatantly lied to the public. Fans who had previously tried to defend him felt deceived, and the reaction was immediate. Hashtags demanding his expulsion from CNBLU dominated social media. The agency, cornered by pressure, ended up admitting the involvement and apologized on behalf of the artist. Soon after, Jonghyun published a letter asking for forgiveness and saying he deeply regretted his actions. But it was already too late. The contradiction between denying everything at first and then admitting participation destroyed any remnant of trust. For the Korean public, there's no forgiveness when lies come before confession. The impact was devastating. Jonghyun announced his departure from CNBLU and completely withdrew from public life. His career as an actor, which was heading toward bigger roles, was abruptly interrupted. To this day, he's remembered less for his music and more for the dramatic fall he suffered. Lee Jonghyun's case shows how, in Korea, lies can be even more lethal than the mistake itself. Many artists have already been caught in compromising situations, but those who admitted immediately were able, over time, to rebuild their careers. Jonghyun chose the path of denying, hiding, and only confessing when the evidence was impossible to ignore. And that was his end. Today, little is said about him. There are no big news about a comeback, and even the most faithful fans have difficulty defending him. His trajectory serves as an example of how glory can turn to ruin overnight when lies enter the scene. In the world of K-pop and Korean dramas, where public image is worth more than anything else, Jonghyun became a cautionary case. It's not just the mistake that destroys a career, it's the lie that accompanies it.